Before we go to the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, dear Sangha, and Venerable Teacher, Abbot. Okay, today we are on verse 37 on chapter 3 of the Dhammapada, chapter on mind, Chittavagga, and we're almost done. Anyway, verse 37 goes, faring far, wandering alone, bodiless, lying in a cave is the mind. Those who subdue it are freed from the bond of Mara. Faring far, wandering alone, bodiless, lying in a cave is the mind. Those who subdue it are freed from the bonds of Mara. The story attached to this verse comes from a young monk named Sangharakkhita, who, once fully ordained, attained arahatship fairly quickly. His sister gave birth to a son, and she named him after her brother, so also named Sangharakkhita. And when he came of age, he decided to ordain, and so he entered the monastery and took novice ordination and took full ordination. And during the rain season, he was offered 2 new sets of robes, nice quality robes, and one was larger than the other one. And so the smaller one he wanted to keep for himself, and the large one he wanted to offer to his uncle, who was also his preceptor. So after the retreat, and he went to the monastery that his uncle was residing at, and at the time the uncle was still out receiving alms. So while he was waiting for the uncle to get back, he cleaned his area at the monastery, he arranged his seat, got some water to clean off his feet and to drink, and then essentially just waiting around, right? So once the uncle came back and the nephew welcomed him and said, Venerable Sir, I'm here to welcome you. I want to offer you a new set of robes. And the uncle refused. He said, thanks, but no thanks. I already have my 3-fold set of robes. I don't need any more. Keep them for yourself. And then again, the nephew asked again, please accept these robes. I got these for the Vasa, for the rains retreat, and I want to offer you a set, because if you accepted a set and wore it, then it's good merit for him. And again, the uncle refused. And because of his attainment of arahatship, right? When someone is fully enlightened at the arahat level, they just simply don't need any more stuff, right? You have no desire for more possessions, no desire for replacing something old with something new, right? And so he had basically no use for any additional robes anyway. But anyway, this refusal of accepting the robes kind of discouraged Sangharakkhita, the nephew. And while he was doing this, he was also fanning his uncle, right? He had one of those big, banana leaf fans, whatever they're made of. He was fanning the uncle, right? And so after the refusals from the uncle several times, the nephew kind of got discouraged. He kind of just felt that's what I'm looking for. rejected, unthankful, whatever, right? He just felt like, for some reason, right, he thought to himself that maybe because he was so hurt by the refusal, that he had this idea of leaving the monastic life and going back to the lay life, right? Because he was so hurt by this rejection. So as he was fanning the uncle, right, and he's thinking to himself, what do I need to do now if I do end up disrobing and go back to the lay life? What do I need? How do I survive? I have no money, I have no possessions, right? So he's thinking to himself, well, if I leave, I'll take the bigger robe and sell it and buy a goat, a female goat, and just let the goat breed, and he'll sell the offspring, right? And he'll do this enough to accumulate enough money to get married, right? Because in that society, you have to present a dowry, basically, right, to the families. And so he needs to raise enough money to do that. So he's like, okay, well, I'll raise enough money, I'll get married, and my wife will give me a son, right? And I'm going to name my son after my uncle, also, Sangharakita. And this is all in his mind, right? He's just daydreaming as he's fanning the uncle. So as he's daydreaming this and saying, I'm going to name my son Sangharakita, I'm going to then take him and my wife to go see my uncle at the monastery and pay homage. And he's daydreaming all this, right? And during the daydream, he has, they're saying that he was driving a cart, which basically a stroller, right? So he was pushing the stroller, this cart that has his baby in it. And all of a sudden he told the wife that he wanted to carry his son. And the wife was like, don't worry about pushing the cart, right? Don't worry about carrying your son. And he's like, no, I want to carry my son, because if you carry them, you're a woman, you're going to get tired too easily, you're going to drop him, and he's going to fall on the floor, and the cart wheels will run over him and kill him. So I'm going to take the son. Right? This is all in his mind. Okay? Keep in mind. And if that were to happen, if the baby were to fall and get run over, he was going to take the stick from the cart and beat the wife. Right? The moment where he was like, I'm gonna beat my wife for dropping my son, right? Because he's in his mind, he already has an imaginary stick that he's hitting her with, right? This imaginary stick manifested into the fan, and the fan hit the head of the elder monk. Now, in Buddhism, injuring an enlightened being is worse than murder. I'll just say that, right? And so the elder monk, he's taken aback. He's like, what the heck just happened? He's like, why did you hit me? And being enlightened, he has a keen sense of perception in the sense of, one of the powers of being enlightened is being able to know people's minds or read their minds, right? And so he knew this daydream that his nephew was having. And he was telling his nephew that, you can't even beat your wife, but yet you're here beating an old elder monk. And so the younger monk is like, oh crap, he knows my mind, he can read my mind, right? He started freaking out. So he dropped the fan and ran away. And then the elder monk gathered some other novice monks and a few others to go catch him and bring him back and take him to the Buddha. And so then he goes to the Buddha, and the Buddha asked what's going on, and they told him the story that he, was fanning his preceptor, and all of a sudden the fan hit the head of the preceptor, and he ran away, right? Running away as a monk or nun is equivalent to running away from like inner military, right? You can't just not show up to work, right? It's illegal, basically. So it's kind of the same thing here. You can't just leave the monastery whenever you feel like there are processes and procedures that needs to be done first. And so the Buddha was admonishing him for running away without going through the proper channels of leaving, whatever, right? And so after they told the Buddha of what happened, he then recited this verse to him. And again, verse goes, faring far, wandering alone, bodiless, lying in a cave is the mind. Those who subdue it are freed from the bond of Mara. Now, this whole verse, this verse is, I know I've said that this chapter is one of my favorites, but this verse is not one of those my favorite ones. Only because, to me, it didn't make sense for the longest time. And then because the Dhammapada is one of those things that I'm translating from Pali for it to make more sense, because it's something, the Dhammapada is something I chant, and so sometimes some translations are very technical or wordy, and it doesn't sound pretty when it's chanted. Not that English chanting sounds pretty anyway, because English is just an ugly language in general. But the point is, when I was trying to translate this verse, it was one of the more difficult ones, because in the Pali version, it's extremely short, right? The verse in Pali, Duraganam ikagadam asaranam gosayayam. That's the verse in Pali. How am I supposed to translate that? And so, it's one of those things that, just like many other verses in the Dhammapada and many other sutras, right, there's always that hidden meaning behind the teaching, right, that doesn't always make sense up front. But anyway, after much contemplation, the conclusion of this verse, I found the conclusion of this verse, which goes, the mind is capable of traveling vast distances. And the Buddha said that the mind can travel up and down, left and right, east, west, south, all over the place, right? So it can travel to the past or the future. It roams about all alone. If it is without any perceptible forms, if an individual were to restrain the mind fully, he will achieve freedom from the bonds of death, or Mara. Bonds of death just means the cycle of existence in samsara, right? Being born over and over again. But if we go back to this first line of the verse, faring far, wandering alone, bodiless, lying in a cave, right? These are 4 qualities or 4 attributes of the mind the Buddha teaches us. Traveling far means that it can stray far away from the starting subject of thought, right? If we think about this entire verse is about daydreaming, right? As we've seen in the story, it's about daydreaming. And we know that you can be here, but your mind can be daydreaming somewhere in Europe or out of space, right? Living alone means that it can think of only of one thing at a time. So the mind, as ample as the amount of thoughts that occur in our mind throughout the day, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of thoughts. But all these thoughts cannot happen at the same time, right? And so you may be thinking of 1,000 things in a minute, but one thought has to begin and end before the next one can begin and end, right? The thoughts cannot just be merged into one. And so living alone means focusing on one thought at a time, right? Not worrying about all the thoughts that are occurring, not wondering about all the past and the present that's happening, but focus on just one thing at a time. Because if you're able to focus on just one thing at a time versus trying to fix all the world's problems in 30 seconds, it's not going to happen, right? And then without body, or bodiless, means that it's not an entity that occupies space, because it's only an activity which can be seen as physical or mental. The thoughts that you have are formless, right? Your ideas, your perceptions, your ignorances, your biases, everything that happens in the mind is formless. It has no actual substance. But a lot of times what happens is when we are daydreaming, right, whether we're daydreaming about the past or we're daydreaming about the future, right, it stirs up feelings and emotions that can shift our attitude or change our attitude. It can make us feel better. It can make us feel worse. It can make us cry. It can make us laugh, right? All these imaginary things that happen in our mind, right, are false. They're illusions, but we give them so much power all the time. Especially when you're thinking about the past and we're like, oh, I wish I could have said this, or I wish I could have done that, or maybe I should have done this, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? We worry about these things, thinking that if we think about it hard enough, that we can change the past. Right? If I spend enough time thinking about that one mistake I made 3 years ago, maybe if I just think hard enough, I can change what happened. Has anyone accomplished that yet? If you have, let me know. There's a lot of things I want to change. It cannot happen. But we obsess over that. We obsess over past events that may have happened, whether they're good or bad. We obsess over them for no apparent reason. Simply to obsess. Simply to have something that we believe we can control. Right? If something bad happened to you, right? A lot of times we may find ourselves using that as an excuse to justify other feelings or emotions or whatever may be that's going on in our life. Sometimes they're helpful, most of the time they're not. The last section is lying in a cave. And here it means that it's intangible, that our daydreams are intangible, right? They are just that. These are fake visions that we give ourselves. But anyway, going back to the story, right? The young monk is thinking, he's daydreaming as he's fanning his preceptor, right? He's fanning the preceptor and he's like, oh, he didn't accept my robes. How dare he, right? Now he feels so hurt that he wants to leave monastic life because someone just said no. Imagine that, right? And that simple rejection of the robes, of this offering, because the monk did not need them, but the simple rejection of it, he took it so personally that he started daydreaming about leaving the monastic life. He started daydreaming about what he needs to do to make money, about what he needs to do to be able to afford a wife and kids, and to go visit his uncle that eventually led him to smack him in the head. Right? This story is trying to help us visualize how much power these illusions that we create in our minds have, and how much they can govern our decisions in life, and how it can move or change our feelings or ideas or perceptions and whatnot. And so this whole chapter, again, is on mind, and it's about being able to, like the verse that we went through last week was about, not last week, but prior, it was about guarding and controlling the mind. Because if you can guard the mind, right, then you can watch and see before it happens all these fake scenarios that are happening in the mind. All the daydreaming you can spot pretty quickly if you're able to guard your mind. And then when you're able to guard the mind, just like a guard at a bank or whatever, right? It's stopping bad things from happening. Or if something bad has already happened, they're there to subdue the situation, right? To attempt to de-escalate whatever's happening. If someone's robbing a bank, right? The security guards are there to essentially take down the robber before they do any harm to themselves or to others. So likewise, when we are able to guard our mind, we can subdue the negative or unwholesome thoughts that are occurring before they turn into anything worse, like speech or action. And so, as we should already know, the practice of Buddhism is all mind-centered, right? Buddhism is a mind-centered practice. Everything happens at the mind first. Everything happens in the mind first. All your happinesses, all your unhappinesses, your sufferings, your accomplishments, or whatever it may be, all these emotions, all the feelings that occur from anything external occurs in the mind. And so, yesterday when we were in meditation class, if you look at the board, there's the 5 jhana factors. These are the jhana factors. These are the qualities that are byproducts of strong concentration, right? And the 3rd and 4th factors are piti and sukha, or joy and bliss. And joy, right, and as a factor in meditation, is a joy that arises without any cause. There's no cause for that joy to arise, right? But it's a bodily sensation. It's a bodily joy. So somewhere in your body, when you're in deep, strong enough concentration and meditation, somewhere in your body will have a sense of euphoria, or a sense of bliss and just extreme comfort, basically, right? But this is and then it switches once it hits its peak and goes over that peak, then it turns into sukha or bliss, and this is a mental bliss. So in joy, you feel that really good bodily sensation, right? There's somewhere in your body, whether it's in your hands, maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's on the head. So the body feels very nice, very good, very content. And once that peak is reached, and you hit, and we shift into the bliss, now it's a mental happiness, right? There's still some residue left in the body where the body feels good, but now your mind has a very strong content feeling. And these are feelings of joy and bliss that arose from nothing, right? They just manifested organically. And they did not need any cause for that happiness to arise, right? In our regular life, anything that brings us joy and happiness is because of externalities, right? You eat something good, you enjoy it because the food is good. You enjoy listening to good music. You enjoy driving a nice car. You enjoy living in a nice house. You enjoy hanging out with your friends. You enjoy whatever it may be, right? All these enjoyments, all these happinesses and whatever is due because of things outside of yourself. But what is the difference between the enjoyments that come from externally and the enjoyments that occur naturally within yourself? What's the difference? Impermanence. Anything that's external, anything that's outside of yourself is always impermanent. If you eat a slice of cake, you're like, oh my god, this cake is so good. Then the cake is gone. Where's your enjoyment of the cake now? It's gone.
That's why you get the whole pie.
I do eat the whole pie. Shh, don't tell anybody. So if we're able to recognize that anything outside of ourselves, all these external things that we do, that we make, that we create, that we take part of, if we're able to truly penetrate and know the impermanence that they have, then we won't be so attached to them in the first place, right? We all, on a very superficial level, understand impermanence. We know impermanence exists, right? But we don't really hold that at a fundamental level. We don't. Otherwise, you would just be content with having nothing and being no one. Because none of us is that important in the grand scheme of things. Right? But we have to not just superficially understand impermanence. We have to truly penetrate it. We have to really dig deep and see things for what they are. Which is the whole point of our practice. Is to see things as they are. To see things as impermanent in everything and everyone that we interact with. This doesn't mean that the Buddha is pushing away or ignoring or denying the desire to want to have things, to want to feel good, right? There's no denying that this is something that we all want. It's fine. Do the things that you enjoy doing. Eat the foods that you enjoy eating. Listen to the music that you enjoy listening to, right? There's no harm in doing those things as they are. The harm comes when we attach, when we allow the craving and attachment to those things that creates harm. And attachment arises because we don't understand, we don't want to apply the understanding of impermanence to them. Right? Us as humans are impermanent, but yet we still attempt to exercise, to eat healthy, right? You have a 3-hour makeup routine maybe, or skincare routine, right? You take a couple of hours to fix your hair, to look for a good outfit to wear. All these things. For what? Right? Of course, you do want to eat healthy and exercise and whatnot because it'll help prolong your life, make you feel better. But eventually, you're still going to age and get sick and die, right? But we're doing all these things to prevent that from happening because we don't want to accept the end of life. We don't want to accept that we're going to get old. We don't want to accept that we're going to look old and feel old and get sick and eventually die. We don't want to accept that. So we're doing things and covering up the gray hairs and the wrinkles and all these things to cover up the fact that we're aging and getting sick. Right? I think gray hair and wrinkles are beautiful. So the kind of moral of the story, or the sub teaching that the Buddha gave after this verse to Sangharakkhita was to watch how much power you give to your mind. Because we think, and I've said this multiple times, we think that we are the masters of our minds, right? We think that we have control over the things that we think and say and do. We think we have the control over our lives. We think we have control over our actions and everything that has to do with me, I, and yourself, right? If you are truly the master of your mind, then you would be able to stop your thinking at will. You'd be able to control exactly how you think. You'd be able to control exactly how you react. You'd be able to control exactly how you feel about things. You'd be able to control the stopping of feeling of hurt or regret or disappointment or whatever it may be. Right? Since we cannot do that, as far as I'm concerned, we're not the masters of ourselves. And so the Buddha was telling Sangharakkhita that if you don't watch, if you don't guard your mind and learn to control it, then you'll never be able to control how the mind works. Because for him, for Sangharakkhita, his mind was taking over. His mind was unguarded, was uncontrolled, and his mind took over and allowed him to daydream to the point where he couldn't even control his own action of hitting the monk, because he's daydreaming about hitting the wife, right? You're daydreaming. If you allow your daydream so much power that it allowed you to physically manifest something, that's pretty dangerous, no? And we do that sometimes when we're angry, if we're in arguments, right? Hopefully none of us have gotten to the point of arguing so hard and so violently that we become physically violent, right? Because we've seen that all the time in arguments. Someone's arguing to such a degree of hatred and ignorance and unwholesomeness that it manifests into physical violence, manifests to physical harm. Because your mind is unguarded, uncontrolled. You allowed your emotions, the feelings, you allowed the imaginary idea of winning or subduing, that you unintentionally, unconsciously did something negative, unwholesome. And yesterday during the meditation class, when we were talking about getting to the point of ekagata, or one-pointedness concentration, is the way that you'd be able to quickly subdue your own mind and watch your own mind and guard your own mind is by labeling, right? And so our habitual, natural habit to everyday life is to subconsciously tell a story. We see someone fighting, we're already, someone's fighting, let me figure out what they're fighting about, right? Or you see a car accident on the road, and you're wondering, who started it? Who was in it? Who was involved? Who created it? Did they die? Did they go to a hospital? Right? If you're sitting in meditation during chanting, someone opens the door or walks in, we're thinking, who are they? Why are they here? Why are they late? Why are they disturbing us? All these mental notations are false. They're illusions. They're unreal. Because we're creating a false story for something that we believe has happened. We're making excuses to justify what we've seen or what we've heard so that we can make sense of the situation. And so when someone walks in during your meditation, right, you're making excuses for them. Maybe who are they? Why are they late? Maybe they couldn't find the place. Maybe they fell outside. Maybe this or that, right? We make excuses to justify things so that we can feel better about ourselves thinking or doing certain things for certain ways. We do this with people all the time. If someone makes a bad first impression, right? Let's say you meet someone new at work, for instance, a new coworker, and they make this bad first impression, then we tend to hold on to that bad impression for a really long time. We have a grudge against them because maybe they were something that we didn't approve, or maybe they said something that we didn't like, or maybe they do something that we didn't agree with, right? And so we hold this bad thing about them over their head. And so regardless of what they do, whether they have done something to prove us otherwise or prove us wrong, or to prove that they are capable of doing what they are, none of that matters. We don't take that into consideration at all. They could have totally proved us wrong, but we were like, I don't care. I still don't like you. Right? So we have allowed our unguarded mind to create this negative story about this person, and we're going to hold on to it. We don't allow it to change. So think about that. I'm sure every single one of us has done that. We hold this, maybe not necessarily a grudge, but we hold this idea, this perception of someone or some people, that regardless of what they do afterward, to assuage the point of where we made that negative comment, or maybe they changed their ways, they've gotten better at their job, or whatever it may be, right? They could have totally proved us wrong, but we're like, nah, I still don't like you. I'm guilty of that, right? And so when you're able to recognize that, it's one thing to be a part of that and to continue on your life doing that every day and not recognizing that it's something that is happening to you, right? And even if you do recognize it and you're like, I just don't want to change my way, you're never going to be happy. But if you are at least able to recognize that that is something you've done or are doing currently, right? Then you have an opportunity to fix that mentality that you have. Because essentially, that impression that you have of that person that you don't like, it's just an imaginary thing. It's imaginary. You might as well just create an entire life story of them in your mind at that point. Because when someone's making a first impression, right, whether you like that first impression or do not like, is incorrect. Because what they do to make a good impression or bad impression is only good or bad because you have an idea, you have perceptions of and expectations of what good and bad are. Right? So people's impressions aren't about them. It's entirely about you. Because you have expectations of how people should act, how they should interact with people, how they should treat you, how they should treat others, right? We have all these expectations. And so when people don't meet those expectations, or they go against those expectations, and these are our expectations, right? If they go against it or break it or whatever it may be, now we have a negative view of them. We have a negative feeling of them. And that clouds your mind, that clouds our judgment, that clouds the truth of reality. Because we've allowed these fetters, these hindrances to take over. Just stop daydreaming. That's the point of the story. And if you do daydream, try to catch yourself. Right? Daydreaming is essentially a distraction out of meditation. Well, even in meditation, you can potentially daydream. But nonetheless, it's still a distraction, right? And so just like what we do in meditation, where we labeling outside of meditation is also extremely helpful. Labeling is not just a meditation practice, right? Because again, we judge and we create all these biases and perceptions for everything we see. Accidents, people yelling, people dressing weird, people looking weird, people acting weird, right? Eating things we don't like or like, watching things we like or don't like. All these things allow things to arise, distractions arise, emotions arise, feelings arise, likes and dislikes arise. So at the end of the day, when we become enlightened, you have no likes or dislikes. We have no dualistic view of this and that. Because the moment you attach a like or dislike to something, or even a neutral feeling, you've already strayed off the path. There is no like or dislike. Like and dislike is only you. I can say I like this and you can say you don't like this. Well, if I like it and you don't like it, then who's right? Who's wrong? Is there a right or wrong answer? No. At the end of the day, it doesn't. At the end of the day, this doesn't actually exist. At a quantum level, at least it doesn't exist. We won't go into that. Because become your own security guard. Guard that mind. Guard what happens in your mind. Guard what is going on. Watch your mind. Your mind is just a 24/7 theater. There's always something happening. There's always a show going on. Right? 24/7. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, what day it is, where you're at in the world. Movie theaters, 24/7. Open business. But this theater of yours is not free, right? You have to provide a ticket to enter. And you're the ticket master. You're the one accepting the tickets or non-tickets. So you have the power to say, sorry, you got the wrong show time or the wrong show, and you can reject this patron. Likewise, if you're able to guard your mind and something unwholesome or negative or something that is unhelpful to you or to others arises, you're that ticket master. What are they called? Usher? No. What are they called? Concierge, whatever. You're the concierge of the mind. You can reject their entrance into the theater. What is it? Doorkeeper? Ticket person? Ticket person. I'll just go with ticket person. So we have to become our own ticket persons, people. Or ticket Buddhas. Buddha tickets. I don't know. Try and make something sound correct. Eventually, your movie theater will shut down and will go out of business. Right? That's kind of the goal. For once, we just want something to be out of business. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts? Yes, ma'am.
Do stuff, like, and the entertainment industry, this is exactly the opposite of what bread and butter that gets made, money is made, distracting and putting energy into these daydreams. I'm used to making my money, you know what I mean? So what's the wise response to needing distraction? Daydreams for energy.
You don't need daydreams for energy. Daydreaming literally sucks energy out of you because you require energy to daydream. You don't get energy from daydreaming. You're wasting energy from daydreaming, right? But daydreaming and being in a creative session are two different things, right? Because you can be in a creative session where it is helpful, it's beneficial. You're trying to achieve something out of whatever you're thinking about. Daydreaming just means that you're just bored with yourself, right? But if you're doing something where it is beneficial, whether it's for your job, or you're trying to figure things out, right? You're trying to plan or create or think of something that has a positive and needed outcome. That's creative thinking. That's creative daydreaming, and that's beneficial. But daydreaming is for the sake of daydreaming, wishing things were different, imagining your life in someone else's shoes, or in a past life, or present life, or future life. There's no benefit to that. But if you're in a session of creativity, of what's another word? What's another word for creative? Yeah. Like there's a benefit, right? You're doing something. You're doing it for the sake of, solution focused.
There's a goal that you're trying to achieve, and I think in just regular daydreaming there is no goal.
Right.
I mean, you're just so man. One thing that I learned about is so for example, people they go out for and stuff. One of the things that they do is they do a lot of visualization. They will go over their routine over and over and over. So if you're like a skateboarder, they're going through every curve, they're imagining every tree, they're imagining, if the snow is
And so the reason they do that is because you literally will train your mind to rehearse and to practice anything. And so if you're constantly just daydreaming about crap, all you're doing is avoiding. Like, so I'm daydreaming about this, meanwhile I'm not changing the oil in my car. I'm not talking to my kid after school to see if they're okay. I'm not calling my mom. But yet I made up a whole story about my neighbor, or about the car accident, or about the clown I saw, or whatever it is. So that's how much power the mind has. That's what this is about. And it's scientifically proven. Anything you rehearse over and over in your mind. So if you're constantly rehearsing negative or bad things, or needing to get distracted, I would ask myself, why? What am I getting distracted from? What am I benefiting from not facing? And then you would fill in the blank. I own my car and I don't know how to pay it. I don't know how to generate more money for it. My boyfriend, girlfriend, partner hates me. I hate them. Whatever it is. And so basically it's a distraction. But whatever you put into your mind, that's going to get stronger. And so that's how those Olympic people are able to shave seconds off of their routine or get it right, is because they just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So again, in a creative process, no problem. But if you're daydreaming about stuff, you may even get it wrong. Somebody gives you a wrong look because guess what? Their dad is dying. It has nothing to do with you. But now all of a sudden you're like, they hate me, I'm horrible, and it just feeds into that. And so now you're daydreaming about that and keep it up. So that's kind of it. So if you're using it, like I have to plan on a festival because, it's a Chinese New Year and I have to plan it out, I have to get creative, and of course, daydream away what you want, what you're going to do. But if it's just that and you've got to make a decision in 30 minutes or your whole life is going to fall apart, but you're daydreaming about the festival, then that's not productive. That's not going to help. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. I mean, that's how I see it.
In that example, if you're thinking about going through the course in your mind and thinking about conditions, that's different because that is connected with your reality, because then you're going to go down that thing and you're going to match all the thoughts and perceptions you have and compare that with the reality you're going down the course. Then you get down and you adjust something, right? So it's like, it's creative thinking is a little bit different, I think, than just where we're just fantasizing just lost or off somewhere. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you're
goal-oriented, right?
If you're really concentrating on the course, then that's a creative use of thinking. I want to
Right.
ask another question real quick. You were talking earlier about controlling or guarding the mind. And I want to ask if what you mean is that we can't control what comes up in our mind. At that point, what bubbles up, we can control what we do with that thought when and after it arises, correct?
Correct.
And isn't that where the thinking and the practice helps us, like in the future, the more we can intercept that thought and work with it, next time that thought arises, it's like, oh, I don't have a chance here. So it's just like, you've already gone through it, so if it does arise again, it's just, rather than just dog on it,
Right. When we say controlling the mind, it doesn't mean, like you said, we can't control the thoughts that arise. Controlling the mind means controlling our reaction to the thoughts that arise. Because typically we don't have a guard. We don't have a guard watching our mind, right? So we typically speak without thinking, right? We all heard the term, speaking without thinking, because you have no guard. If you're unguarded and you speak without thinking, then you have there's a potentiality of regretting what you've said. You have a potential of hurting someone, right? Because you're unskillful with your speech. But if we have a guard, then the guard has time to stop and reflect on what's going on before you have the chance to verbally say it out loud, right? So we guard what's happening so that we can control what we say and what we do.
So in the story, his first misunderstanding was when his uncle refused to take the road. He had a total misunderstanding. That was the beginning when he thought, oh, he's not taking it because he doesn't like it. Right? And then he didn't deal with that, so that led to doubt and practice.
Right.
And then he could have stopped it even there and just dealt with the doubt. But since he didn't deal with the doubt, then it went into fantasies and was completely out of control.
Yeah. Exactly. And if you think about the power of your thinking, right? Let's say I'm going to use Linda as an example. She's a runner, right? She does marathons. If she's running a marathon and all that she sees in front of her are obstacles, all she's going to be thinking and worried about are the obstacles versus the clear paths that she can take, right? Because if all she sees are rocks in the way or trees in the way or people in the way, that's all she's focusing on. She's not even focusing on the correct path to run, to go, right? And so if you focus on the negative and what's harmful, that's all you're going to worry about. You're not even going to worry about being able to run correctly. Or if you're skiing down a hill and all you're focusing on and worrying about is not hitting the tree, all you're going to think about is tree, versus seeing the clear path that you actually need to take. And you're going to end up hitting a tree because that's all you're thinking about. It's all you're worried about. That's right.
It might trade places really fast with another thought, but it's like a vision. We only see a little circle of clearness in our vision, and yet our brain sees everything in focus.
Right. Yes, sir.
Would you say that we ourselves are empty and full, therefore we are a reflection of this emptiness and fullness? The only difference is the sentient mind. Because the sentient mind thinks, it can no longer be empty and full, and so one must guard the sentient mind in order to be able to control the understanding of what is empty and what is full within oneself.
That was a lot of words. You're going to have to repeat that again.
Emptiness is really no mind, but because we have a sentient mind, we therefore think, therefore we are trying to grab something tangible, we're trying to manifest, grab hold of something, we're trying to understand something. But if we're empty and full, we know that we're empty and full. Then if we can guard our mind better and understand how to control our mind so it doesn't always want to cling on to attachments and other things like that. So it is about guarding the mind. But it's also about understanding how that this emptiness also wants to be fullness in a way. It wants to be something tangible. It wants to, you know what I mean? They're one and the same. And yet to understand that and control that within the mind. To understand that, you know, on one hand, I feel this way, but on the other hand, it's impermanence. You know what I mean? So, you kind of have to juggle it a little bit.
It's a paradox. It is a paradox.
Yeah, it's a paradox.
We have to live in this physical world for something beyond the physical world.
Yeah.
An enlightened being is part of the world, but is not of the world. It's part of the world, but is not of the world. Meaning that you can go out, you can do things, but you don't have the attachment, you don't have the desire for those things like a normal person would. Right? I have to eat and drink because I have to sustain my body. But some people eat and drink for other reasons, because they like the food, because they want to get drunk, because they want to enjoy different types of foods, because they want to enjoy their favorite food. Right? They're not eating for sustenance. They're eating for craving and desire. Right? And so you can be you can be of the world, but not part of it. When you're of the world, you're just doing things to survive, to stay healthy, to stay alive, to be able to practice. Right? But if you're going out to eat your wallet's full, what's the word? What's the saying? Eat your heart out. I'm going to say eat your heart out, right? Eat whatever you want. Say everything you want. Drink anything you want. Drink everything you want. For what reason? Is that really healthy at the end of the day? It's not. Right? And so, if you know what is right and what is beneficial, helpful to yourself and to others, then you're in a state of this is correct. But it has no benefit to yourself or to others, and this is incorrect. Right? So that's usually the kind of the mantra we want to give to ourselves. If you're about to do something, and you have some sort of doubt or question, you're questioning what's happening, you can ask yourself, is this going to be helpful or beneficial? Is it harmful to myself or to others? If it's harmful, it's unbeneficial, and it's not great, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Okay.
So what's the karmic implications of conscious awareness of mental actions in your head or thoughts? Like, is there the karmic implications of just thoughts that arise that are unpure or not right? Are there implications of that, or not knowing? Are there implications of not knowing, not being consciously aware of something, or are there, what's the scale of karmic?
Asking if there's like a karmic hit for the thoughts, like do you get
For negative thoughts that arise, is there a karmic implication or debt in that sense because they arise?
yes, but not at the scale of saying it, and not at the scale of doing it. So if you're thinking something unwholesome or impure, let's just say you get one karmic hit. But if you say it out loud, maybe that's 3 points. If you do it, maybe that's 5 points. If you escalate, maybe that's 10 points. Right? So it's mind, speech, and action have levels of severity. At the mind level, of course, it's very minute. Right? There's not really a number to it, but I'm assigning a number just to make a point. That even at the mental level, because if you think about our practice, if you're thinking about the precepts, what are the precepts actually doing? Purifying the mind. That's the goal of the precepts, is to purify the mind. So that means that the mind has power. The mind has the ability to do good and do bad. It has the ability to harm, to heal, to help. So of course there's going to be some karmic negative points or brownie points.
So sometimes you can really dive into something you're not quite ready for, take on more karmic debt than you're supposed to. Have more aware.
I think that's kind of a concept of everything religion. It's like in Christianity, if you know that you're committing a sin, it's worse. And you being ignorant of it is less. It's still a sin, but it's still, so I think that's just a concept all the way across. And it's like getting burned right there's doing this first degree sin. So, but I think the thought leads into words, and then the words lead to actions. And so if you can just stop it at the beginning, maybe there's consequences right at the beginning, so you don't keep going.
And you can go back to the Eightfold Path, right? Because right thinking is one. And then right view is another thing. And then right intention is another thing. But they're all mind related. Thinking, view, and intention are all mind related. So when you look at the precepts, for instance, the precept is only broken if there's an intent behind it for it to be broken. Right? So the first precept is to avoid taking life. But it only counts as an actual breakage if you intentionally went out and took life. Because we take life every single day, unconsciously, right? We step over bugs, we hit bugs when we're driving. Even brushing our teeth is killing germs. That's still living things. So we're killing every single day. But we don't have an intention. We don't have a malicious intention to take life. It just unfortunately happens, right? And so there has to be an intent behind doing something, even when you're thinking about something. If you're thinking to cause harm, right? It's one thing to just randomly think of something negative, but if you have the intention to actually eventually do it, or want to do it, or want to feel like, or feel what it feels like to do it, then that's more severe than just having a random thought about it. You okay?
Then there can be different degrees on how I respond to what I've just done, even though it wasn't intentional.
Right.
So in other words, if I spend some time thinking about what has just happened, I might find the energy to be more mindful of driving.
Right.
So I regret what happened, and I'm going to deal with it by ensuring that I'm going to drive like
Right.
as opposed to, oh, I had a cat, oh, that's too bad. The cat's not really right. That would be not a something way of doing it, right?
Right. And that's why in Buddhism there's repentance, right? It's not confession. And so in repentance, we're not asking for forgiveness from the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas. So they're not here. They don't care about our intentions. What we're doing in repentance is reminding ourselves that we unfortunately did something bad. And we make a vow to be more mindful and be more aware in the future so that we do not repeat that offense again. Okay, we're way past time, so I'm going to stop. We will share the merit and go into chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Body, speech, and mind in perfect I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me to my true home. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted, mindful, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddha Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may we awaken from forgetful and realize our true home. The incense in the censer now is burning all the Dharma realm in auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfill. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and Great Bodhisattvas. Homage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma insatiably sung throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empties, and 3 periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattva, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, earth sword, great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas. Sit down. Namo, great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo, great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo, great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Ratnatrayaya, Namo Mahasattvaye Mahasattvaye Mahakarunikaya Om Sarvaravaye Sodanadasya Namuskridvahi Mamarya Valokiteshvara Ramdava Namo Narakindi Hri Mahavaswami Sarvarhatu Shubham Hashiyam Sarva Sadva Namo Vasava Namo Vagamavitatu Om Havaloke Lokate Karate Hiri Mahabodhisattva Vasarva Maramala Mahimahiriddayam Koro Koro Karmam Doro Doro Vijati Mahavijati Dara Dara Dirini Shvaraya Chala Chala Mama Vimala Muktilehi Yehi Shina Shina Arsham Prashari Vishva Vishvam Prashaya Holo Holo Mara Holo Holo Hri Sara Sara Siri Siri Soro Soro Bodhiya Bodhiya Bodhaya Bodhaya Maitreya Narakendi Rishanina Mayamana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Mahasiddhaya Swaha Siddha Yogeshwaraya Swaha Narakendi Swaha Mara Nara Swaha Sira Simha Mukaya Swaha Sarva Mahasiddhaya Swaha Chakra Siddhaya Swaha Padma Kasaya Swaha Narakendi Vagalaya Swaha Mavari Sankaraya Namo Ratna Trayaya Namo Arya Valokiteshvaraya Swaha Om Siryanto Mantra Padaya Swaha. The Dharma body is bringing morning light in concentration. My heart is at peace. A half smile is born on my lips. This is a new day, and I vow to. In mindfulness, the sun of wisdom has risen, shining in every direction. Noble Sangha diligent, bring your mind into meditation. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. The one who bows and the one who is bowed to are both by nature empty. Therefore the communication between them is inexpressibly perfect. Our practice center is the net of Indra, reflecting all Buddhas everywhere, as reflects in whole life. I go for refuge, offering light in the 10 directions, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, to whom we bow in gratitude. Teaching and living the way of awareness in the very midst of suffering and confusion. Shakyamuni Buddha, the awakened, to whom we bow in gratitude. Cutting through ignorance, awakening our hearts and our minds. Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of great understanding, to whom we bow in gratitude. Working mindfully, working joyfully for the sake of all beings. Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva of great action, to whom we bow in gratitude. Responding to suffering, serving beings in countless ways. Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of great compassion, to whom we bow in gratitude. Seed of awakening and loving kindness in children, sprouts, and all beings. Maitreya, the Buddha to be born, to whom we bow in gratitude. Showing the way fearlessly and compassionately, the stream of all our ancestral teachers, to whom we bow in gratitude. The Dharma is deep and lovely. We now have a chance to see it and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajna Paramita, shed light on the 5 skies. After this penetration, he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shariput, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than. The same is true with with feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariput. Dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreased. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, no perceptions or mental formation, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas ground in Prajna Paramita find no obstacles, for their minds have no obstacles. They overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodh. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra of Prajna Paramita. For be proclaimed Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha. We invoke your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening in order to help relieve the suffering in the world. You know how to listen in order to understand. We invoke your name in order to practice listening with all our attention and open-hearted. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We will sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying, and also what is being left unsaid. We know that just by listening deeply, we already alleviate a great deal of pain and suffer the other person. We invoke your name, Manjushri. We aspire to learn your way, which is to be still and to look deeply into the heart of things and into the hearts of people. We will look all our attention and open-heartedness. We will look with unprejudiced eyes. We will look without judging or reacting. We will look deeply so that be able to see and understand the roots of suffering through the impermanent infinite and selfless nature of all that is, we will practice understanding to cut through the bonds of suffering, thus freeing ourselves and others. We invoke your name, Samantabhadra. We aspire to practice your vow to act with the eyes and heart of compassion, to bring joy to one person in the morning and to ease the pain of one person in the afternoon. We know that the happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. Action and every smile can bring happiness to others. We know that if we practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and for all species. We invoke your name, Kshitigarbha. We aspire to learn your way of being present where there is darkness, suffering, oppression, and despair. So we relief and liberation to those places. We are determined not to forget about or abandon those in desperate situations. We will do our best to establish contact with those who cannot find a way out of their suffering. Those whose cries for help, justice, equality, and human rights are not being heard. We know that help can be found in many places on. We will do our best not to contribute to creating more hells on earth and to help transform the hells that already will practice in order to realize the qualities of perseverance and stability, so that we can always be supportive and faithful to those in need. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realize the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to all people, build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness, gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer you to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path.